A thread by Carlos Asuida. Why am I convinced that the Beirut port event was a military operation planned and carried out by countries other than Israel, but with Israel's cooperation? Shijaya, Gaza City, July 20th, 2014. Shijaya, which is spelled 40 million different ways, was the nerve center for the terrorist wings of Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Rocket factories, rocket depots, launching pads, and underground facilities in the heart of Gaza City's upscale neighborhood. The Israelis knew they had to take it, so they made every precaution they could to spare civilians. They dropped warning leaflets for 4 straight days before the ground assault. For those 4 days, Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, PIJ, prepared the largest ambush in the history of urban combat. They had already built enormous IEDs into roads, buildings, and lampposts. Now they barricaded civilians in their homes. Hamas and PIJ brought in anti-tank guided missiles, rocket-propelled grenades, mortars, heavy machine guns, light cannons, and recoilless rifles. They made all the homes into firing posts. Late on the night of July 19th, 2014, the Israelis began an artillery bombardment into empty fields to signal to the Palestinians the start of the operation. Most of Gaza is empty space, despite what you're told. To further signal their intent to not harm civilians, the IDF used only armored personnel carriers, APCs. No tanks, no infantry fighting vehicles. The IDF went in at midnight, and at 1 a.m., the ambush was launched. One M113 armored personnel carrier was immediately destroyed, killing 7 Israelis. This vehicle was never intended to stand up to anti-tank guided missiles. 6 more soldiers were killed, and then IDF command lost contact with the invasion force for 2 hours. Finally, the commanders on the ground called and said they were pinned down by such murderous fire that they were all going to die. As a last-ditch attempt to save the men, the IDF command ordered them to cram into the Namer armored personnel carriers, APCs. These are converted tanks. They're the most heavily armored APCs in the world. The IDF artillery fired 600 high explosive 155 millimeter rounds at their own men, and Air Force jets dropped 100 Mk-84 2,000-pound bombs only 300 feet away. The artillery barrage and bombs killed all the terrorists. When the IDF command lost contact with the invasion force, they ordered tanks from the 188th Armored Brigade to race from northern Israel to Shijaya. The infantry stayed in their Namers while the tanks mopped up with their cannons and machine guns. Then the infantry was able to finish the destruction of the terrorist rocket factories, weapons depots, and tunnels. So, what was the result of Israel taking such precautions? They got accused of war crimes anyway. Watch the beginning of this documentary until there are no more explosions. Link in the description, but the title is, of course, Shujaya Massacre at Dawn. You know what the explosions are? Outgoing heavy mortar fire. Yeah, it's Palestinian fire. Forgive the blather, these guys can't stop raving. Look at the area above the woman's head. You can see dust pouring down from the mortar detonation. You can also hear debris hitting the metal awnings. The ambulances came out during the IDF humanitarian ceasefire, but Hamas and PIJ didn't stop firing. They also use ambulances to transport terrorists and weapons. Israel bent over backwards to protect civilians. It made no difference. The press always sides with terrorists against Israel. And the Shijaya documentary accidentally showed Hamas and PIJ terrorists. There's simply no way to have overt wars with Hamas and PIJ. They always win the PR war. That's why the Beirut operation was clandestine. Lebanon, during the 2006 Hezbollah-Israel war. Look at each image. I have a surprise for you, so it's okay to look. A boy cries over his dying mother. They faked it. And they were proud. Look at the demonic look on their faces. The dynamics in Lebanon were identical to the dynamic in Shijaya. There was absolutely no way for any armed force to go in there and take out the factories, stockpiles, and fighting posts. The Lebanese would eagerly fake deaths, and Hezbollah would murder civilians. Hezbollah was deeply unpopular by 2006. When the Israelis launched their war, the entire country rallied behind Hezbollah. Tribalism, Jew hate, national pride. Lebanese are fanatically loyal to Lebanon. The Israeli invasion was a catastrophe for Israel. The final factor is that regardless of what Israel does, a large portion of Israelis will call it Nazism and elect weird-ass doves who cause more problems. Israel's secret allies found the only solution. We have no idea how many troops entered Lebanon secretly. It was a huge number. That's why this was done. From JPost, 4M Analytics clears minefields with artificial intelligence. Quote, during a 2-year research period focusing on Israeli minefields, they found that approximately 80% of each field is actually clear of mines. Huh. The Israelis secretly took out 80% of their mines. Why? I think I found the answer. This was in 2016. From the national.ae, 350,000 troops take part in region's biggest ever military exercises in the Saudi desert. By 2016, the Saudis had trained 350,000 troops from 30 nations. How many more have they trained since then? There could be as many as 150,000 infiltrators in Lebanon. Hezbollah had about 120,000 rockets and 75,000 frontline fighters and reservists, but their capabilities are bogus. Hezbollah, with a brand new model 1919 Browning 30 caliber machine gun, a museum piece in perfect condition, meaning never having been used. An entire Hezbollah armored platoon was exterminated by 2 men in Syria. Hezbollah lost so many men in Syria that they stopped having funerals. Since the start of the Saudi-led Yemen war on March 26, 2015, I've found the deaths of less than 10 Saudi and Emirati special operations soldiers. The Saudis and UAE did what they did in Iraq. Saudi and Emirati strategic commandos went in as units of Yemenis were trained in Saudi Arabia and in the UAE. Militiamen were trained to the level of professional troops. This is a militia vehicle. Oh, hang on. Broke his thread. Give me one sec. This is a militia vehicle. Militiamen were eager and willing to learn, so they became real soldiers and were incorporated into the Yemeni army. Their fighting abilities speak for themselves. None of the dire predictions for Yemen came true. It's not a stalemated war. It's the last war Yemen will fight. Slow and smart or fast and dumb? The answer is obvious. I miss my life, my family, and my mum. Educated by British military, and I have no idea what kind of weapon it is behind him. It is new, and it's in good condition. Today, Major conflicts are fought in secret. It's the only way to go. That way, you defeat the worst enemy civilization has ever had, the Western press.